Well, yeah, that is not how we drew it up. Uncompetitive ball game, really. 5-run loss for the Tigers, and Erod got hurt all in 9 innings. So let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. All righty. Well, the Detroit Tigers lose 8-3 at the hands of the Los Angeles Dodgers in LA. It is 1:30 in the morning as I'm starting this. So this episode probably doesn't even get uploaded and stuff until like 2:15 or 2:30. It's very late, a very long day. Just in general, very tired. But the show goes on, and the Tigers did play a ball game. Not a very competitive one, but certainly a noteworthy one. There was a lot that happened in this game that we have to discuss. And I'm not going to bury the lead on you. All right, we're just gonna get out in front of it and talk about the biggest storyline in this ball game off rip here, and that is that Eduardo Rodriguez left this game with an injury in the 4th inning. His final line would be 3 innings, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, just the 1 strikeout, and 2 home runs given up. His ERA now up to 3.57 on the season. After the game, they asked AJ about it. He said it was a spasm of some sort, some muscle spasm of some sort, as to the initial diagnosis from the training staff as to why they pulled him. I mean, he looked like kind of off, and then they called the training staff out. And then apparently he had told AJ and the staff that, he was just a little uncomfortable for 1 pitch. Let me throw a warm-up pitch, a test pitch. And then if I'm fine, I'll stay in the game. And they were like, okay. And so they did. And then he completely airmailed Jake Rogers behind home plate and hit the backstop. And they all looked at each other and didn't even have a conversation. Erod didn't even say a word. They just all looked at each other and they were like, you're done. And so they pulled him. And I mean, just really quickly, before the injury, he was not sharp. That's another game of poor command, fastball command specifically. That's, I don't know, 4 starts in a row where I've kind of been like, fastball command wasn't great, but, it was so good for the first 2/3 of the season. I'm willing to kind of just chalk it up, excuse me, as maybe an off night or two. We'll see how it continues to look going forward. I don't think we can do that anymore, to be honest with you. Like that, this is a solid sample size of poor command. And in this game, obviously, I mean, he only went 3 innings, so he only had the opportunity. He only walked 1 batter, but missing over the heart of the plate to a lot of people. And he doesn't have the velocity to blow it past you, if he misses his spots. And in this ball game, he got hit hard. He got hit very hard and very consistently, was not missing bats, only the 1 strikeout, just was not super effective. Now, I still appreciate and very much respect and enjoy the style that he pitches. Like, he's going to try to fill the strike zone as much as possible. I think he's a professional pitcher. I still like his strategy when he's on the mound. I'm still fine if he's back next year, but that's kind of an interesting transition then into the offseason now. And again, we'll have this conversation in full when A, we know the severity of the injury, and B, when the season is officially over. But I've been very vocal since March, before March, since like January or February, that this dude is going to opt out of this contract, right? He's not gonna just like go missing for a couple of months like he did last season. He is going to pitch. He's going to pitch probably decently well, and we have him on a bargain, and he's going to opt out. And then the first half of the season, he was one of the best pitchers in the entire American League, and we were like, okay, well, he's doesn't even matter. Even if he doesn't have a great second half, he's opting out. And his second half hasn't been fantastic. He's got an ERA over 4 in the second half, but he hasn't been awful. And I still have been under the belief of like, his ERA isn't 7. Like he's still been around the ballpark enough to where like his final line at the end of the season is going to justify an opt out still. I'm still very confident in that. This is the one thing that can steer that opinion. The one thing that could throw a wrench into all of this nonsense that has been not nonsense, but the roller coaster, we'll say, that has been Eduardo Rodriguez's Detroit Tigers tenure over the last 2 seasons. The one thing that could throw a serious wrench in that heading into this opt-out is an injury at the end of the season. And if it's just a spasm, a muscle spasm for one night, it's just a weird thing. He still has 2 more starts left this season and makes both of them and looks fine. Then this is a non-story. And we look back at this and we go, this didn't matter at all. But we don't know if that's the case. And what we know right now is that he didn't look good and then left the game due to an injury. So there is, if it ends up being even remotely serious, okay, if this is like he's shut down for the year, that's going to be like a super dramatic headline, but like that's going to be 2 starts, like, whatever. If it's like, if the season even was still going on, he'd be missing a couple of months. Like if this is a relatively severe injury, you add that with the other injury he had this season, and you add that with a not as good second half as a first half, that is when it creeps into the back of your mind of like, oh my goodness, he might actually opt in. And I'm not saying that he's going to. I'm not. Again, we don't know the severity of the injury. We have no clue. And this dude also, I don't know him personally, but just in the baseball world over the last 2 months has proven to be somewhat of a wild card. I think that's objectively true with some of his decision making, right? In his Tigers tenure for sure. So like I think that's when it creeps into the back of your head. You're like, oh, that's a throwing arm injury that like he's not going to resume baseball activity until November, maybe even December. Like that's when you start looking around, you're like, all right, this we might change tune here. This might be an opt-in situation now. But that's all presumption, and we have no idea. I'm just laying the groundwork for what could happen this offseason. I'm not trying to say if it will or won't. And we really won't know. Again, he's getting further testing on Tuesday, on Tuesday afternoon, I should say. And we will come to somewhat of a better grasp of what's happening. But I have gone this entire season just hell-bent on like, yeah, he's going to opt out. And now for the first time, I'm kind of letting the idea creep into the back of my head of like, I don't know, like that's there's at least a conversation surrounding that now after Tuesday. All right. So we'll keep an eye on that. If he's healthy, I'm going to lean back into just hardcore pressing into he's going to opt out. But becomes very interesting from here on out. So that's the lead. That's the biggest story of the night. Let's keep going. We got a whole ball game still to talk about, some bullpen performances, some bullpen management decisions that I'd like to kind of talk out loud between or around, I guess. Neither of those words is the word I'm thinking of. I'm very tired. And then we're going to talk about the offense, obviously, that was not great in this ball game. But first, I got to tell you all about our friends over at LinkedIn Sales Solution. Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and the seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habit of top performers, which leads to better outcomes like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales, and we've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So call right now. Call to action. Goodness, not call right now. This is not a landline. But right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day, 60, free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back tomorrow recapping Game 2 against the LA Dodgers. Tigers lose this one 8-3. Erod, we kind of talked about the biggest story in this game. Let's go to the bullpen. So Trey Wingenter, 2 innings of actually really good baseball. Again, I sound like a broken record, but his fastball command was brilliant. And his final line was brilliant. It's funny how that works. It's the most vital thing for nearly any pitcher can have, right? There's a few exceptions, but fastball command is everything, man. And Trey Wingenter kind of epitomized that goodness in this baseball game. So yeah, he was dotting, 97 on the black for his entire outing. So good for him. Glad we're finally getting to see healthy Trey Wingenter at the end. I'm not holding my breath. I don't think he's going to come back next year. Well, whatever. We'll talk about that in the winter. I would not bet on him coming back. I wouldn't be shocked if he did. But he was hurt for so long and struggled early on. We didn't really get to see a prolonged sample size of him. And there were some people that were kind of excited about bringing him in last winter. So glad we're finally seeing that a little bit, for better or for worse. Jose Cisnero then goes 1 2/3, gets absolutely rocked, gives up a home run. His ERA is now 5.7. And then Will Vest ends the game 1 1/3 of perfect baseball with 2 Ks. Will Vest ERA under 3, good for him. Absolute dog, has been fantastic the last 3 or 4 weeks now. Completely turned his season around. Good for him. Great start to the year, great end of the year. Injuries plus struggles in the middle. So I think that he's a candidate to come back next year. We'll see how he looks in the spring. But I think he's played his way into maintaining and staying on this roster versus, a month and a half ago, I might have said otherwise. So good on him. Jose Cisnero, I don't know how many times we have to have this conversation. I have no clue why he's on the roster. Love the dude. Great contributor the last few years. One of the more underrated Tigers of the 2020s so far. I genuinely believe that. But, goodness gravy. I have no clue why he's still here. I would much rather be giving Brennan White innings in September in a lost season. Jose Cisnero will not be on this baseball team next season. I have no clue why we're doing this. But, struggled in this ball game. Unfortunately, the struggles continue. Got hit very hard. Couple of strikeouts, but yeah. So there were some questions about the management of the bullpen, why are you leaving Cisnero out there? And he's thrown so many pitches and whatnot. Erod got bounced early, and you have a scheduled bullpen day on Tuesday. I know I'm the big, innings matter guy, but that is why. That's objectively why. There's no other explanation. That is the reason as to why these guys were left out there. Cisnero mostly, I guess, Wingenter and Vest pitched more than an inning, but they didn't give up any runs. So I guess it's not as much of a conversation for them. But Cisnero threw 40 pitches or something ridiculous. Yeah, man, they have a scheduled bullpen day on Tuesday, and their starter went 3 innings on Monday night. So they needed innings from somebody, and they weren't going to turn the ball over to the A team in the bullpen, right? And go Holton, Foley, Lang when the Tigers were losing this entire game from the second inning on. They got within 2 runs in the 5th, and then, Cisnero happened. So I don't have any complaints about this. This was like people have I don't know if misconception is the right word, but a lot of people just look at like, oh, pitcher gives up runs, pull him, and like it's so far from that simple. Like it's not, it's a complete chess match, and it's not a chess match game to game. It's a season long chess match. How long ago did I use so and so? How many innings do I need out of my bullpen tonight? How close is this ball game? Like, what, is this worth trying to salvage? Like, how competitive do we think we're going to be the next 2 days? We're in the first game of a 3-game set. We're right in the middle of a West Coast road trip. We have no days off until Monday. Like, there's so much more to it than just like, oh, like pitcher give up run, like get him out of the game right now. And I think this game kind of perfectly epitomized that mindset. So that's why they were kind of left out to dry. Again, Cisnero mostly. He's the only reliever that gave up runs in this game. The offense in this ball game was quiet, to say the least. Outside of a Jake Rogers 3-run homer, it was silent. That was the only blow in this ball game, and we've talked about it a lot. If you're not going to hit with runners in scoring position, you better hit for power. And the Tigers, obviously, they lose by 5. It was not a competitive ball game really at any point. But they went 1 for 5 with RISP. That one hit was a 3-run homer. So they were able to not get shut out because of the long ball. I think we talked about Jake Rogers a little bit more in depth yesterday. And we'll do that again, obviously, in the winter and this offseason when we do player, I was going to say previews. That's not right. Player reviews, player grades, whatever. We'll figure out a cool name to call them. But when we look back at and break down all these players' seasons, and Jake Rogers, that's a 20 home run season, and it's only his 100th game. Right? He's played in 100 games this season and has 20 homers. That's a fantastic pace. That's a lot of home runs. And I think I want to say Jason Beck. It was Jason Beck tweeted out. He's one of only 6 or 7 Tiger catchers ever to have a 20 home run season. And the only Tigers catchers since 2000 to have 20 homers in a season are Jake Rogers 2023 and Eric Haas 2021. That's the end of the list since the Y2K. Sure. I was trying to think of a date to like really pinpoint it as, and I guess that's the one that came to my mind. But since 2000, that's it. So he's valuable. He gives you good defense. He's going to give you 20 plus homers if that's sustainable. If he can walk a little bit more, I think that he could be an incredibly valuable player to this team. He already is valuable, but he can be even more valuable if he draws a little bit more walks in the future. So good on him. 20 home run season for Jake Rogers. That's what, 3 Tigers this year that have 20 home run seasons in Torkelson, Carpenter, and now Jake Rogers. So good on the boys, man. Goodness, 2019, not that long ago, where the team leader in homers had 15 at the end of the year. Not too far removed from that. So good on them. Offensively, I kind of want to talk about the lineup really quickly, just because like we lost this game, and we, again, at no point did we look like we were even close to as good, or like this game was even remotely competitive really at any point. Which I guess sounds like super like down, but like it's the Dodgers. Like I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. I'll be fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's the Dodgers, and it's one game too. If we get swept, I guess I'll be like mildly disappointed. But again, like we talked about this yesterday, man. Like if you were to say going into the first game against the Angels, right? Hey, next 6 games, West Coast road trip against the Angels and Dodgers. You're going to go 3-3. I think a lot of people would say, yeah, that's fine. I'd take that. Right. And so I will be upset. I want them to get a win. Just get a win. And like the bar is on the floor. Just win a game. And I will consider this, fine. 4-2 in that stretch. The A's you should beat. That's a different conversation. We'll get to that later in the week. But like in a vacuum, losing 1 game to the Dodgers in LA is about right. And when you look at the lineup we put out there, I mean, goodness, dog. Like Well, let's talk about it a little bit more after the break. All right, but first I got to tell you all about our friends over at Jace Medical. Everyone should be empowered to take care of themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have medication in hand, and it's simple. They handle everything from the online evaluations to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 as well by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 3, third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in. So, yeah, like this lineup was just rough, man. No Torkelson. Miguel Cabrera batted third. That was cool. Cool moment at this point in the season. I'm fine with just getting cool Miggy moments. Like I'm chill with that. But as far as like a competitive baseball team, like mantra, Miguel Cabrera in 2023 is your 3-hitter. Probably not the best look. Yeah, I mean, geez, my goodness, the OPS game in this one is a doozy. 671, 648, 658. That's your top 3. Those are the 3 guys that get the most at-bats on your team because they're the top 3 in your lineup. 671, 648, 658. Then you pinch hit 2 of them for righties late, 712, 730. Your 4-hitter, 849 OPS. Shout out Kerry Carpenter. Jake Rogers up to a 739 OPS after this ball game. And then your bottom 4 is 546, 596, 583. And then your 9-hitter is 715 OPS, Andre Lipsius. Goodness gracious. Your 6 through 8. 176 average, 546 OPS, Tyler Nevin. 195 average, 596 OPS, Parker Meadows. And 217 average, 583 OPS, Javi Baez. I mean, that's the bottom of your lineup. And the top of your lineup, again, your top 3 hitters didn't have an OPS over 700. Tough to win ball games, period, with that. Nonetheless, against the Dodgers in LA. It's a tall order, my dog. It's a tall order. Give them credit for fighting. Trying. They got runners in scoring position off Lance Lynn for the first 5 innings. They had runners on second or third, but just couldn't bring them in. Risp. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole. Just a big problem for the team this year. Thank goodness for Jake Rogers to make this a 3-8 game instead of a 0-8 game. But yeah, man, I mean, like how many people in the lineup tonight are starters next year? Because this was a terrible lineup. Okay, we can just call it what it is. We don't want terrible lineups in 2024, right? We're going to have some, injuries are going to happen. People are going to struggle. We're not expecting. Baseball happens. But if we can avoid it, we should. So how many people on this lineup are back next season? Starting next season. Carpenter, Rogers, Baez. That's probably the only guarantees, right? That's probably the only guarantees. There's an argument for Parker Meadows to be your opening day center fielder. He obviously needs to hit better, but we've kind of kept an eye on that this entire time. We'll see how he looks in the spring. He'll certainly make some adjustments in the offseason, almost assuredly. We still got a couple of weeks left. We'll see. Maybe he can get on a hot streak here down the year. Give some optimism to people. But yeah, I think the only guarantees are really Rogers, Carpenter, and Baez. And Carpenter and Rogers are your 2 highest OPSs in this lineup. So I guess, I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing for the outlook of 2024 that the only people that Javi's had an awful year at the plate, obviously. But 2 of the 3 are like your 2 highest OPSs. That's a good outlook for 2024. It's a rough outlook for September 19th, 2023. September 18th, I guess, is when the game was played. But you get my point. So, yeah, I was not really. I did not run over to FanDuel and place any units on the Detroit Tigers after seeing the lineup. I'll put it that way. We'll see. I just want a game. I just want a game. That's it. Pretty much it for this ball game. Let's talk about some off the field stuff happening for the Detroit Tigers organization. One, Riley Greene, his injury. He's getting a bunch of opinions, which is terrifying. That usually does not bode well. As I've said a million times in my 2.5 years hosting this show, I am not a doctor. I have no clue what is wrong with his arm, his elbow, whatever. I have no clue how serious it is. Okay. I do not know. They could come out tomorrow and be like, hey, he's totally fine. He's going to play next week. Awesome. They could come out tomorrow and be like, he has to get his arm amputated. And I'd be like, oh, well, that's terrible. Like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I do know that if you're actively going out of your way to get multiple opinions, that usually means you don't like the previous opinion you got, which usually means substantial amount of time missed is on the table. So I don't know. I'm not trying to just make everybody scared. I have no clue. But usually when you go down the ladder of next option, no, let's get another option in here. That nobody hears great news in option one and goes, oh, let's be sure and hear from two other people, right? You take that and run. So kind of terrified for that. Not trying to make you terrified as well, but it's my job to relay my opinion, and I'm terrified. So that's where I stand on it. I have no other update at this time regards to it, but yeah, man, I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared about Riley Greene's injury situation. We'll keep tabs on it, obviously. We now have Erod's injury situation to keep tabs on as well. We'll end on a high note, though. Jackson Jobe made his Double-A debut over the weekend and looked phenomenal. His first start in Double-A, he goes 6 innings of shutout baseball, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts, no walks yet again. Look, I know we've said it a lot on this show. We said it just last week when he got the call up to Double-A. You can be mad about the pick all you want. You can like Marcelo Meyer all you want. But at the end of the day, I think this kid is proving that he has the highest ceiling of any pitcher in the organization right now. The only person that you could even argue in my eyes that might have higher is probably Skubal. But like we're actively seeing that, one to 2 times a week at the major league level. Jobe's ceiling is unbelievably high. He has had a phenomenal season. The pitching development team for this organization continues to take victory laps. He is yet another one. He's looked great, man. Cutter, slider, changeup. Oh my goodness. I think that's the biggest revelation to me. Like we knew he had velocity. We've known about the slider since he was like 17 years old. The addition of like movement on his fastball was a great addition, but the organization's been doing that to a lot of pitchers. That's all fine and dandy. His changeup is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. And it is so fun to watch him pitch. It has been an absolute pleasure to watch him pitch this year. Pounding the strike zone, not walking batters, striking out a lot of batters, not giving up base runners. He looks fantastic. And I think that this is a dude who, like, September call-ups 2024, I don't think is far-fetched at all. So that's exciting. Ending on a good note. Okay? Ending on a high note on a rough and long and tiring ball game, tiring evening for the Detroit Tigers. So game 2 will be tonight at 10:10 p.m. Eastern. Yet again, the Tigers going for a scheduled bullpen day, as I said, and Miguel Diaz will be the opener yet again for the Detroit Tigers, just like they did in L.A. I keep saying that when they play the L.A. teams back-to-back, you can't really do that. Just like they did against the Angels. So Miguel Diaz getting another chance to open. I'd imagine if the game's even relatively close, we're probably getting the A team. We're probably getting Holton, fully laying. Again, unless it's like a complete blowout, I would imagine that we're going to see all three of those gentlemen at some point. Yeah, and our we do well in bullpen games, and I think it's because AJ is such a good bullpen manager that he is able to play his matchups as like to a T. He doesn't have to worry about making sure a certain pitcher pitches a certain amount of innings. He can just kind of play the matchups the entire game. So I think that's to AJ's advantage, given how good of a bullpen manager he is. And yeah, the Dodgers starting pitcher at this present moment is TBD. So we'll see what happens with them. Maybe they have a bullpen day as well. I'm not really sure what's going on over there with that, but it's weird to see bullpen day on the schedule, and like for us, our record in bullpen games is like we'd be like the 0-1 Mariners. Like we win like every bullpen game. We've only lost a handful all year. So that actually to not just like completely write it off and be like, oh, we're just throwing in the towel here is kind of nice. So we'll see what happens. And then game 3 will be Reese Olson time. So thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back tomorrow recapping game 2 against the Dodgers. I think that's all I got. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. For real, means the world to me. I'm very tired. It's now 2 a.m. I'm going to bed. Hope you have a great Tuesday. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.